Genesee Cream Ale. Why has this icon from Rochester stood the test of time? Let's find out.
Smooth Genesee Cream Ale. It's not the same old brewski.
So how did this small, regional Rochester brewery survive wars, Prohibition, the rise of mega-breweries, and still stand tall here today in 2025? In this video, we're going to answer that question, and we're going to finish with a taste of this beer, and I'm going to let you know what I think. So before we get into that, let's rewind to 1878. It was then that the Genesee Brewery was founded right on the banks of the Genesee River. Why there? Well, two reasons. First, the water, super clean, cold, consistent, thanks to the water flowing over the Rochester High Falls. Second, the city itself. Rochester at the time was booming, fueled by the New Erie Canal, flour mills, and many different factories. Of course, those factories were full of workers, and those workers were thirsty, and beer was their daily drink of choice. Back then, there was no cold chain, there was no shipping Budweiser coast to coast. There were no refrigerated trucks. Beer was hyper-local and brewed for you in your city or town. Breweries competed on a pint-by-pint basis on trust, quality, and their reputation. Reputation was everything. Genesee really nailed that formula. Horse-drawn wagons would rattle through the cobblestone streets with kegs of fresh beer. Neighborhood saloons proudly served, quote-unquote, the local stuff. And before long, Genesee wasn't just a brewery, it was woven into Rochester's daily rhythm and the folks who live there. So if you guys are fans of the channel, you've heard this story before. Brewery starts out, boomtown, and then Prohibition hits. And a flip went off in the entire industry, bringing things to a screeching halt. Overnight, brewing beer was illegal. Genesee, like many others, scrambled to make near beer, things like soft drinks, trying to repurpose and utilize their expensive investments in equipment. But here's the kicker, a lot of breweries didn't survive, they didn't make it back. Before Prohibition, there were more than 4,000 breweries in America, and by the time it ended in 1933, only 1 in 4 remained open. Genesee was one of the survivors, and in 1933, employee Louis Whaley bought the brewery, but the world looked different after Prohibition. Big breweries like Anheuser-Busch, Miller, Schlitz, they had the money, the marketing, the scale for this new development of cold chain, which let breweries ship their beer all around the country at a cheap cost. Regional breweries had to fight hard for relevance, and if Genesee was going to make it, it couldn't just be beer. It needed an identity. So jump ahead a few years to 1960, the American beer culture was shrinking, not expanding. A lot of breweries played it safe. They were making things to compete with, kind of mimic mass market beers like Budweiser, chasing the same light and bland profile. Regional breweries were losing relevance and getting swallowed up and shut down. But Genesee made a different decision. Their brewmaster at the time, Clarence Gemin, decided to brew something nobody else was doing at the time. A hybrid. Not quite an ale, not quite a lager. Something that borrowed from both historical traditions. And that gamble became Genesee Cream Ale. So what exactly is a cream ale? It's actually an all-American creation. Think of it as a crossover. You get the clean, refreshing crispness of a lager, fermented cold, carbonated bright, but you also get a little whisper from ale yeast. Get this subtle fruitiness, a little bit more body. The beer's a little bit richer and has a little bit more character than the American pale lagers that were so popular at the time. So when cream ale hit the shelves, it was unlike anything else. It was smooth, easy to drink, approachable, and not generic. And people responded. This beer started winning medals. People started calling it Genny Cream. And suddenly Genesee had a flagship beer that wasn't just another lager. It carved out its own niche. So fast forward now to the 70s and the 80s, this cream ale had cemented itself in the American beer culture.
I like it, 'cause there's nothing like it.
It's different.
Genesee Cream Ale.
In upstate New York, it was all over the place. Corner bars, fishing trips, college parties, backyard cookouts, you name it. And over time, it became a very nostalgic beer. Today, if you ask someone about Genesee from the Rochester area, you're probably going to get a story of some sort. What's your story? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. So as time went on, ownership changed hands, beer trends came and went, and the craft beer explosion shook the market. But through it all, Genny Cream Ale held on. Cream Ale stayed at the center of its identity. Today, the Genesee Brewhouse overlooking High Falls is both a working pilot brewery and a museum of Rochester's brewing history. It's where new beers are tested, but it's also a reminder of what built the brand. All right, guys, so the question you're probably wondering is, why has this beer stood the test of time? We have one right here in front of us, and as we so often do, we're going to crack it open and find out. Michael, what do we know about how we source these cans?
Right down the road, 30 racks only.
30 racks at Yankee Spirits in Sturbridge, Mass. Big shout out. Date code, I do not have a lot of information about how old this was. Bought warm and then refrigerated. The cans that I have here are icy cold. As I so often do, I like to comment on the design of the can. It's refreshing a bit to have one that's a little bit different than what we've had recently. The iconic green color is really attractive. It's a 3-color can with a little bit of subtle gold in the word mark Genesee, but otherwise it's a bright, clean can. You got Jan, New York. That's kind of clever. Kudos to that, since 1878. Also love that. Brewed for generations. Do I have alcohol information? Yes, I do. 5.1%. Beautiful yellow golden color going into my glass here. I like to give it a bit of an aggressive pour to scare up some of that head and see how it retains. Crystal clear, beautiful, beautiful color, high effervescence, Michael. If you look inside that glass, we see a lot of bubbles coming through. Nice, dense, rocky head, nothing to dislike there. It is a 12-ounce can going into a 20-ounce glass, actually, so we're not quite full. On the aroma, clean, sweet, mild. I get like biscuits and honey. I get a little bit of metallic character on the nose. Tiny bit of metallic character, which has me a little bit nervous for the flavor, but sometimes you can get that on the nose and it doesn't carry through the flavor. That's really nice. It has a really crisp flavor profile. This particular can is very clean. I get a little bit of honeyed sweetness. I get a little bit of hop character of the noble and spicy variety. Not a lot of fruitiness going on in this beer at all. I don't get a lot of apple character. I don't get any mixed tropical fruit. I don't get any citrus. I get a little hint of earthiness. Very, very little bitterness. Kind of like that ale finish isn't as soft as a lager finish, so I have this kind of clean and crisp finish, which I actually sometimes prefer to a lager. It's a little bit more refreshing to me right now as I drink it. That's really good. I can see why this beer stood the test of time. This particular example, we never know what we're gonna get when we buy it at the store. Clean, refreshing, tasty, all around solid beer, and I know why my grandmother drank one every night. All right, guys, I love saying the word Rochester too, and I'm excited that Treehouse is actually gonna spend a couple of days out there. On October 17th and 18th, we're loading up the trailer and bringing you guys some Julius Green and Haze, so mark your calendars for that. Couldn't be more excited. We recently did visit Rochester, took in that beautiful waterfall view overlooking the city, checked out the Kodak building, shout out. So we'll see you on October 17th and 18th. That's all for now, guys. That's Genesee Cream Ale from 1878 to 2025, a delicious beer that generations can be proud of from Central and Western New York. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts down below.